spots are a huge problem across every state at the moment with public money.
That's right.
With union. I mean, it's not just Victoria, which I know is famous and trending for it, but New South Wales has had its own fair share of problems too, as has Queensland and South Australia and Western Australia.
Federal government with snowy hydro.
Absolutely. But look, the fallout which we're discussing, people are talking up in the press as an end times for the CFMEU, and I'm sure Labor's position to distance themselves is political as much as anything else, because, you know, this idea of the CFMEU being, you know, a bit bullying behaviour and some dodginess, that's been known for a long time among businesses. I mean, even when I was a kid, I knew about it because my parents had to deal with it. So to say that this is new, it's not new. And so I guess Labor is a bit worried about how this is going to look with their reputation. Now, it stretches credibility for me that Labor didn't know about some of these more serious accusations, or at least suspect they were going on. So what do you think triggered this very public breakup we've seen between the state Labors and the CFMEU? Like, why is it happening now?
Well, there's been tension for a number of years, of course, particularly in the Victorian branch, and that's largely been due to the previous secretary. I think the real issue here is the media scrutiny on the corruption, on the alleged allegations of corruption, and clearly governments have got to respond to that. I think I'd like to separate corruption, the allegations of corruption, from industrial behaviour, which has been around for a long time. I mean, these are tough industries, and I have to make the point that the employers are complicit in all of this as well, because it's an easy environment when you can pass on the costs to any of these things to the government or to customers, and that's what's been happening in this sector. And to make things even worse, certainly in Victoria, you've got the major construction union super fund actively involved as a purchaser or a funder of these projects. Now, there ought to be something done about that. I can't see how it's acceptable from a conflict of interest point of view that CBUS be involved in funding these projects, yet have on its board, active members of the union or people that are associated with the union. There ought to be some APRA requirements to change that. I'm not saying don't have union people on there, but don't have them that are active in the union or associated with that union, because there is a prudent trustee rule that applies that you've got to act in the interest of your members. Now, them funding building projects with their members is, firstly, it goes against principles of diversification in financial risk. That worries me too. They want to be investing across the board in what is most effective for their members, but not necessarily funding these projects. It gives them a lot of leverage in the bargaining with governments and construction companies if they're the funder as well. So there needs to be something looked at. In terms of affiliation, I think you do have a point, and it is at the point where Labor's in government. There ought to be a distancing of the ALP from unions that are, confusing the sort of affiliation role with the government management role. Now, how you do that is very difficult. Perhaps it's done through the local ICACs and those sorts of bodies to ensure that there is transparency and no, corrupt-like behaviour. But you really can't stop organisations from affiliating to other organisations if their members so desire.